This sermon is titled Liberating Love, Softening Our Hardened Hearts. Last month, I joined 25 fellow rabbinical and cantorial students from my seminary, students of all ages spanning the Los Angeles, New York, Cincinnati, and Jerusalem campuses, for a one-week educational trip to India to learn about the Indian Jewish community, a unique group who traces their history back to the days of King Solomon in the 10th century BCE. Grounded in the values of kavanah, intention, arevut, responsibility, and asiyah, action, we embarked on a whirlwind journey that would take us through the past and present, engaging in conversations on particularism and universalism, learning about the Jewish Indian story and the myriad stories of India spanning the last 4,000 years. It left quite the impression on me that we were able to celebrate the final night of Hanukkah and welcome in Shabbat with a dozen young adults from the Mumbai Jewish community, sharing stories of joy, as well as the challenges of being a minority in our schools, at our jobs, and our broader communities. We visited several synagogues in both Kolkata and Mumbai, a bittersweet experience as we saw these majestic buildings, once full of life, song, and prayer, now struggle to get the required 10 adults to form a daily quorum to pray. It was a week of immense learning, of cultural humility, of gratitude, of awe. There are many moments that stopped me in my tracks during this 7-day journey. The chaotic and bustling flower markets with the most vibrant yellows and oranges I have ever seen. The harrowing experience of crossing the street in a chaotic city without lanes or traffic lights. Good thing I did not literally stop in my tracks in that instance. The lingering impact of British colonialism that is present in almost every aspect of Indian society. One unexpected moment that literally stopped me in my tracks, though, occurred on our second to last day. 2 positive COVID cases within our group meant that the original plan to visit and sing songs at a Jewish old age home could no longer happen. Instead, our tour operator took our group to a small house in southern Mumbai, a house turned museum, which served as the focal point of Mahatma Gandhi's political activities and the place in which he lived for 17 years between 1917 and 1934. In the museum, tucked away in a corner of the library, stood a framed letter, an appeal from Gandhi to Adolf Hitler in 1939. In the letter, Gandhi addresses Hitler as a friend, urging him to prevent a war that could reduce humanity to a savage state. A second letter was perched across from the first. This one, from just 1 year later, is more urgent. Dear friend, he opens, that I address you as a friend is no formality. I own no foes. My business in life has been for the past 33 years to enlist the friendship of the whole of humanity by befriending mankind, irrespective of race, color, or creed. I hope you will have time and desire to know how a good portion of humanity who have been living under the influence of that doctrine of universal friendship view your actions. We have no doubt about your bravery or devotion to your fatherland, but your own writings and pronouncements and those of your friends and admirers leave no room for doubt that many of your acts are monstrous and unbecoming of human dignity, especially in the estimation of men like me who believe in universal friendliness. You are leaving no legacy to your people of which they will feel proud. They cannot take pride in a recital of cruel deed, I therefore appeal to you in the name of humanity. Stop this war. As I stood reading the letter, I could not get past the gentleness, but also firmness with which Gandhi addresses Hitler. Uncomfortable, almost disturbed, I've thought about this letter often in the 2 weeks since I've returned. As I sat down to prepare this sermon, I turned, as I often do, to this week's Torah portion in the hopes that the biblical story of the week might offer insight or commentary on this month's theme of liberating love. Perhaps Gandhi's letter was still on my mind because the thing that stood out to me most in this week's Torah portion, a story that includes a burning bush, a rod turning into a serpent, water turning into blood, and more. The thing that stood out most was the description God gives to Moses regarding what is about to transpire. When you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the marvels I have put within your power. I, however, will harden his heart, so he will not let your people go. I was again stopped in my tracks, this time by the description of such a vindictive God. If it was God and not Pharaoh who was responsible for Pharaoh's hardened heart, could the violent plagues have been prevented? What happened to free will? An interpretation that resonates with me is one by Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, a rabbi I have often quoted from Massachusetts. Pharaoh, Rabbi Barenblatt writes, accustomed his own heart to hardness, a habit of acting without regard for justice or for the needs of the oppressed. You know how when children make ugly faces, parents sometimes say, be careful, your face might get stuck that way. Pharaoh made his heart ugly, and it got stuck that way. He wore grooves of injustice and a lack of compassion into his heart, and it was unable to change. God hardened his heart. Yet the January Soul Matters theme of liberating love challenges us to resist the temptation to let our hearts become rigid. It is so much easier to harden our hearts against those who have wronged us, inconceivable to soften our hearts for those who have hardened their own hearts against the marginalized. But what if, in this new year, we took a cue from Gandhi to lead with a softened heart instead? This, of course, is easier said than done. You may recall from my past sermons that last spring, I participated in a facilitation training with an organization called Resetting the Table, where we focused on creating space for dialogue across lines of difference. One of the most valuable skills I gained from this training was the ability to identify opportunities to validate, to see and hear without agreeing or condoning. Often when I disagree with someone, my first instinct is to become defensive, sometimes offensive. If I speak authoritatively enough, assertively enough, they'll hear my ways. They'll see I am in the right. Yet, both Resetting the Table, Gandhi, and our Soul Matters theme remind us that pausing to consider the ways in which someone's experience might guide them toward a different view than our own is essential for our work and for our relationships. And even if ultimately we still disagree, or more pressing, it is incumbent upon us to speak up, to call out or call in. It is possible to do it from a place of softness rather than hardness. These last few months, the months that have transpired since October 7th, have provided ample opportunity for me to practice softening my heart. I'll be honest with you, I have been incredibly disheartened by the hardened hearts of people, mostly Americans, on both sides of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It feels like the majority of the world, and I'm not talking about the people actually on the ground in Israel and in Gaza and in the West Bank, have lost the ability to see the humanity of those actually living through the crisis. With hardened hearts and closed ears and minds, we have become an echo chamber. And that, my friends, scares me deeply. So this month, I am setting an intention to liberate love in the hopes that my efforts might trickle down to those around me. I'm setting an intention to soften my heart, to be a better listener, more compassionate, slower in my response, and more patient in my listening. My prayer for each of us is that we all consider the power of a softened heart in the face of hardness, and in doing so, that we may strive to embody those qualities that can reshape not only our own lives, but the world around us. Thank you.